Okay, in this video we are going to go ahead and install Docker on our running container. And I have the console up here, and if you come over here and click on the connect, you can see that it generates this. And this is important, so you do have to do the chmod command, which I forgot to do. So I'm going to come over and chmod mine right now. Chmod is an affectionate term. So let's see here. There's a key, so that did the chmod command. And I am going to need to modify this a little bit so you can see that this is an important step, and this is very, very Unix, Linux specific. So OS X is using a version of FreeBSD under the cover, so it is effectively a Linux or Unix machine. If you are using Windows, hopefully you have PuTTY and be able to do something similar with PuTTY. And I definitely know chmod will not work on Windows. I don't have a Windows machine here to step you through this with, but the commands might be a little bit different for you. And you can see right here there is a connect on using PuTTY. So if you're using Windows, follow that link and it'll show you how to use PuTTY. I haven't touched PuTTY in years, so I would not be a good resource for helping you with PuTTY. Now you can see here's an example of the connect command, so SSH-I, and that gives you the jhipster key pair, and it gives you the image name. So I'm saying root at, and then this is the URL that gets set up for that instance. So if you look at that, that looks oddly like the IP address of the instance, so which it is. So I could in theory do the IP address or this. I am going to do that, and I've got this copied over. And you can see that I modified the command slightly, and I am doing a -i that tells it for the key, and that squiggly says my home directory downloads jhipsterpim. So let's go ahead and connect, and you will see this the first time, and I'm going to say yes, and I'm pretty sure you have to type that out completely. And now you can see that it's saying to log in as the user CentOs rather than root. That's pretty common. So let's go ahead and change that. And now do a clear here. You can see that I am up and running on that CentOs image. So we can take a look. We can see that it is running. Really nothing going on there. This is the top command to show me the running processes. So nothing too exciting going on the system right now. So let's go ahead and install Docker on here. So I'm going to do a clear command. And the first command that we want to run is I'm going to go over and switch over to root because we want to be doing this as root. So I could do sudo su. Now that takes me in as the root user. So now I'm going to run this as root. I'm going to do a yum install Docker. Hey guys, right here, I want to do a little call out. So right here you see I'm using the command yum install Docker. This should actually be yum install docker-ce for Community Edition. So this is where I made a mistake. If you do just yum install Docker, it's going to install a rather old version of Docker before they broke into the two different editions. And that gets a little dated. And we definitely want to be using the more recent versions of Docker. So if we use the command yum install docker-ce, that is still the Community Edition of Docker, fully featured, just not the Enterprise Edition. And it will do everything that we need, and it gives us the most recent version of Docker available. So definitely don't make the mistake that I did. You have some hoops to jump through in the future. But I want to do the call out, make sure that you guys understood that right here is where I made that error that I talked about at the beginning of this video. And you can see that it is now bringing down the Docker components for us using the yum installer. So this is a package manager. If you're used to using Ubuntu, I'm going to say yes there. You're probably accustomed to using apt-get. Yum is the same thing but different, so just a different package manager. And if you're really into Linux and Unix, you'll probably disagree with that. And while this is downloading, I'm going to pause the video here briefly and resume once that is done. Oh, there, it's done. So now a couple more things that we need to do. We need to do system control, start Docker, and that brings up the Docker daemon service. And that is the status, and we see that it is up and running. So that is system control. Now, if we were to restart this image, Docker would not restart it automatically. So if we do system, now if the system gets restarted for whatever reason, that command tells it to restart Docker for us. Now let's go ahead and verify that Docker is up and running. So I'm going to clear this chatter here, and let's do Docker run. So Docker run hello world, and you can see that it pulled it down, and you can see right there at the top here saying hello, this message shows that your Docker installation appears to be working correctly. So this is all happiness. So when we ran that, you could see unable to find image right here, and it went out to the Docker registry and pulled that down. So that tells us that Docker is up and running. Let's see here. So I just did a ps-ef, so that is for processes. I'm doing a grep to look for that word Docker, and we can see that the Docker daemon is up and running, and it appears to be very happy. So we currently, I'm going to say this is a successful install of Docker. Let's clear this. And just to show you, I just brought up the history command there for your reference if you want to take some notes here and follow along. The first command was a yum install Docker, system control start Docker, system control status to check the status, system control enable Docker, which is going to enable Docker to survive or restart. If the system is restarted, that Docker service will be brought up. And then you can see there the sixth command is I made sure that Docker was up and running. And on the seventh command there, you can see that I did the ps-ef for Docker. Now, you can also, just a quick trick here, if you do a bang or an exclamation point, 7 for history, it'll run that number 7 out of your history. So a real convenient Linux command, a little tip and trick from a guy that's been working with Linux for a while. And then one last thing I want to show you here is, let's go ahead and clear this. And here you can see that the Docker version that we are running, and I was expecting, it does not tell us whether it's the Enterprise or Community Edition. Should be the Community Edition because we are not running the Enterprise. It's also Docker info, CentOs. So you can see Docker info does produce quite a bit of information. And I thought it'd give us more, or at least some information about the Docker edition. If I scrolled right by it, I did not see it. But we are definitely using the community edition of Docker because we are using CentOs. All right, at this point, we do have Docker installed on the VM, so we are ready to run a Docker image or bring up a Docker container from an image that we have up on Docker Hub. So that will run just fine for us. We will show you that in an upcoming video. A couple more minor things that we need to do to this image. One of them is to get Apache set up, and I will show you that in an upcoming video. So a number of things that we still need to do to get our application deployed, but this is just one more step. So you can see how easy it was to install Docker. Pretty simple thing here. Next, we'll get Apache installed and configured, and we'll get our Docker image running. And we'll also have to set up a database. So these are all going to be separate videos for you to see coming up in the course.